In this video, I'm going to discuss how to find locations to shoot at. And this is probably one of the most asked questions I get, surprisingly. It's actually really easy to find locations if you have the right strategy and the right websites in mind when you go to research them. So within this video, I'm going to break it into two sections. In the first half, I'm going to show you how to find the mainstream locations. So how do you find those places that you see all over Instagram, all over Facebook, basically all over the internet? You see them multiple times, you see the same arches, the same mountains. How do you find that exact location to show up and shoot? Secondly, I'm going to show you how to find the secret locations. So AKA the hidden gems, the places that no one's shooting at, the amazing scenes that exist in this world, which no one has discovered yet. So with that being said, most of this video is going to involve online research strategies. So I'm going to make another video later in this course that's going to specifically talk about social engineering strategies, which is going to be how to talk to people in order to learn how to gain access to locations and perhaps talk to locals and find access to great locations. And then secondly, I'm going to make another video about Google Earth in particular, because it is such a monster to learn how to use and there's so much that goes into it. So let's go ahead and dive into the first half where I'm going to talk about mainstream locations. And the easiest way to do this essentially is to go on Google, and you simply go to whatever town, city, neighborhood you're in and type in best locations for photography in blank. And you can change those verbs around a bit if you're not getting a lot of results. So best places to photograph in, top places for photography, top places for landscape photography, top places for Instagram photos is another popular hit. So basically just work with those words there in certain combinations and see what you can discover. And the chances are, if you're in a big enough city, there's going to be a lot of blogs online that are just going to have lists basically talking about the biggest places to go shoot. And these are the places that everybody is going to shooting. So when you hear photographers online complaining, there's so many people at this one place that I showed up to, that's because they're using this exact strategy here. It's extremely effective and you're going to see epic places, but there's probably going to be a lot of people there. So keep that in mind. Another thing to note with the mainstream locations is that there's tons of photographs of them already online and for sale places. So if you're a new photographer, chances are you're probably not going to be able to get a better photograph than the millions of other photographers who've shot the exact same scene, except know how to show up and take the proper photo because they've been doing it for years. So the good thing about mainstream locations is that you could show up and practice your composition work with them. So perhaps you see a certain composition online that you like, you can show up and try to replicate it as a beginner. And this is a great strategy that I tell a lot of people that are new to photography to get into. So see a photo, see a scene online, show up to that place and try and get the same scene. Obviously, you're not going to do this for your entire art career, but it's going to begin to teach you how the camera works, how composition works, and you'll start to get a feel for how the lenses and just how everything comes together. So the mainstream locations are a great way to start. Another way to find mainstream locations is the obvious. So Instagram and Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, all the social media apps are generally fairly good for finding the mainstream spots. I would say Instagram is probably the best because so many people geotag their locations. So if you see a photo you like, most of the time you can just go up and see exactly where it is. However, it is important to note that there is a movement growing online about people not sharing their locations because they don't want them to get too flooded. So it's starting to get a little bit more difficult to be able to find locations if you see one on Instagram. One good strategy is to go through the comments, especially if it's a big influencer or a big photographer. If you scroll through all the comments below, oftentimes you can find at least one or two comments that will start to direct you in the right direction of where to go, if not give away the place entirely. Then once you have a few clues, you can begin to research maybe the arch in this area, and then maybe you'll see a list online of all the arches in a certain part of that state, and then maybe you'll be able to find it. So there's ways to navigate it and start to look for those locations once you get a few clues. That's essentially the way to find the mainstream. Just simply Google it. Now let's get into how to find the hidden gems and the secret spots. And this is a strategy and some websites that I've refined over a couple years. So you're gonna get a gold mine of information here. So you can just start off taking photos in the middle of nowhere and get epic shots if you follow this. The first tip I have is to find those mainstream locations that I was talking about before online, and then zoom in on a map, Google Maps for example, and start to look for different trailheads, parks, attractions within the area related to that area. Because chances are, if there's a popular landscape in a certain area, most of the time the landscape around it is gonna look fairly similar, but it's just not gonna have the hype as that one photo or that one scene is generating online. So if you go on a map and just look in the outskirts area for different arches, waterfalls in that same area as a popular thing, you can find a lot of hidden gems that most people are just walking right by because they're going to the hyped Instagram spot. That leads me into Google Maps, and Google Maps is going to be your best friend for finding hidden spots. Note, I'm not saying Google Earth, Google Maps. So the best way to use Google Maps is to simply put in keywords. So whatever city you're in or location, just type in waterfalls, for example, into the search bar, and you'll see a ton of waterfalls pop up. And if you could look for the waterfalls that have smaller amounts of reviews, maybe one or two, just a quick snip from a phone that someone took a photo of, that's how you know it's a good spot. And you could repeat this process with literally any landscape. I like to do lakes, sand dunes, rivers, riverbeds. Dried up riverbeds is another popular one if you want to find these deserted areas, which is literally what I'm in right now. Caves is another great thing to search. You can search viewpoints, overlooks. All of these buzzwords will bring in a ton of results on Google Maps that people aren't posting about on social media. The next tip I have for finding secret locations is simply to go to state parks or national monuments. So many people go to the national parks because they're hyped up and everyone wants to see every national park, but the state parks have a lot of potential for insane photos that aren't really hyped on social media. Sure, there's some state parks that have gotten a lot of attention, but for the vast majority of them, they're just simply sitting there completely empty and no one's taking photos of them. So Google state parks, national monuments, like I said, is another place to go and find that a lot of people usually aren't shooting at because they're not very popular. National preserves, national seasides, national grasslands. These are all buzzwords you can use on Google that aren't gonna lead to those super popular results. So now let's get into some websites that I've found that can help you find secret spots. And one in particular I enjoy is called Atlas Obscura. And this is a great website for weird spots. So you'll find weird abandoned places, underpasses, places where there's graffiti everywhere, abandoned cars, stuff like that. Maybe local folk legends, caves, places where people practice satanic rituals. All sorts of weird stuff is on this website. Another great website is shothotspot.com. And this website in particular is great for abandoned locations. Sure, you'll find some landscapes in there here and there, but it's really great for finding those empty factories, plantations, sugar mills, all that sort of stuff, abandoned farms. Gold mine on that website, and not a lot of people talk about it. Another great website for finding obscure locations is Reddit, but you have to learn how to use it properly. So sure, you can go to the photography related subreddits, see a cool photo, then scroll through the comments, and then usually be able to pick apart clues to find where that location is. But you can also go into the subreddits of local towns and communities. So for example, go to reddit.com/r/Albuquerque. And if you dive through the Albuquerque subreddit and start looking for places to photograph, you'll find a lot of locals talking about local scenes that aren't the big ones online because everybody knows those, and all the locals that are on these subreddits aren't talking about those places because, believe me, they know that those attractions are there because they live there. So Reddit in local communities is another great way. And this kind of coincides with Facebook groups. I know I mentioned Facebook more on the mainstream side, but if you get into more of the groups, you can start to message people and see people posting abandoned and crazier landscapes in the middle of nowhere if you dig a little bit deeper into the comment sections. Another website to find places to explore is on AllTrails. AllTrails is great because it's more just general nature trails. If you just want to go for a hike somewhere, then pull up AllTrails and you'll be able to find a hike that most likely has something cool at the end of the destination. Another good website to look at is Flickr. And Flickr is a little bit hit or miss. A lot of photographers don't post their locations on there, but if you do search by a certain location on Flickr, you can often find that as a tag. So you can scroll through the photos in a certain location, and if you see something cool, oftentimes if you look in the tags or the caption or the comments, you might see some details about some more crazy spots that aren't super popular. So those are the main websites I use, and then alongside there's a variety of small apps out there that are trying to make it big as a photography destination hotspot app. I'll name drop a few right now. PhotoHound is one, Explorist is one, I believe Location Scout is another one. There's tons of startup apps, and if you go on them, they usually only have like a couple hundred places, and they're usually focused to one part of the country or one part of the world because that's where the founders are. But if you happen to be in that part of the world, you can find a bunch of things on there. So I mainly use these smaller apps as just Hail Marys, like I can't find anything in this area, let's just search this app and see if I can find something to go shoot. So those are my main websites that I use for photography. In conclusion, I would say that you get better at researching online. So once you start to implement these strategies that I've said in this video, you'll be able to start discovering crazier and crazier locations. You just gotta dig deeper and deeper. And usually when you dig deep enough, you can find those spots that absolutely no one's at that are super epic. So just keep researching online and you will find awesome stuff. I did want to make one more note that if you go on my website, intricateexplorer.com/adventures, I do keep an adventure map on my website that documents every single place I've been. So if you do see a photo from somewhere you like, go ahead and check out the map. The link is at the top of that page, and you can see a location of all the places that I've been to. So let's go ahead and hop into the next video.